Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Code of Honor podcast by Bodyslam.net. I'm your co-host, Kiley. This is our other co-host, Kyle. Kyle, how are you?
Doing great, Kiley. Really excited to be talking Ring of Honor.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. I've been so excited for this podcast for so long. We've just been talking about it, and I'm so glad it's finally a reality. So since this is our first episode, I think we should intro the podcast a little bit. So we're going to be talking everything Ring of Honor. So Ring of Honor news, we're going to be talking Ring of Honor history, sort of classic matches, everything Ring of Honor. Kyle is a big Ring of Honor nerd. He's so excited to be here. So with that being said, should we start with Supercard of Honor news?
Oh, man. Absolutely. Suffice to say, I'm really excited. Just think about 2.5 months ago, we were settling in, watching Final Battle. We weren't really sure what was going to happen, where everything was going to go. We were kind of mentally and emotionally preparing ourselves for maybe never seeing this company again. And, here we are a few months later, we're getting announcements. We've got Supercard of Honor happening in a pretty good sized venue, as I recall. I want to say it holds 7,000-8,000, something like that. And Ian Riccaboni is going on Facebook Live every couple of weeks or so with new announcements. So let's dive into some of those. The most recent Facebook Live was held a few days ago. I forget what the date was specifically. Offered a few details on it. So good to know. We will have Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman on the call at Supercard of Honor. So nothing's changing in the booth. We're super excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be so great to have familiar voices, and I think we're going to get a lot of familiar faces. And I'm so excited to see who Ring of Honor brings back, if they bring in any new faces. So what do you think?
Oh man, new faces or a few old faces that we'll probably get into in a little bit here. Yeah. A couple of the big reveals that we did talk about, that Ian talked about on Facebook Live, was we're looking at an 8-match card at this point. We are going to be headlined by the match that we should have gotten at Final Battle, but we were robbed of by COVID. Jonathan Gresham versus Bandito. Each one now has a claim for the Ring of Honor World title. So we're going to find out who the undisputed champion is.
And it's going to be a great match. I think their styles are so different, but I think they're going to work so well together. And that's a match Ring of Honor needs. I think the show is going to be major. I think they're going to put a lot of effort into every single match, but you have to have a very solid main event. And all the Ring of Honor fans know about this match. And when it got canceled, because we thought that Ring of Honor was gone, it was a huge crushing blow. Everyone thought we're never going to see it again. So I'm glad they're being upfront and transparent long before the show. This is our main event. Please have goodwill and trust in Ring of Honor. And I'm so excited.
Oh man. And we've got another exciting move. The ROH tag team titles will be defended. The Briscoes against a mystery team. We're not sure who it could be. And we've talked about it a little bit. We've really trying to figure out who this might be. If it's going to be a new team, an older face. What do you think? Who would you like to see?
See, here's my thing. I think mystery tag team opponents is kind of a big deal, and I think fans expect it to be a big deal. So Ring of Honor really have to deliver. I'm not sure it's going to be anyone super new. It could be, and this is me spitballing, what if it's FTR? And that's just me spitballing. That's something I would love to see. I think the FTR Briscoes feud, where did it go, first of all? Why hasn't the match happened yet? And I think that would be a good place to do it. I think you could also bring in really anyone the Briscoes have a lot of history with. And I think there's a lot of Ring of Honor OGs who could fill that spot. I hate to be that person and say the Young Bucks, but the Young Bucks. I'm not sure what kind of situation Ring of Honor is in with AEW. And so both of those choices would totally depend on Tony Khan and AEW because they are AEW talent. But there's also some interesting sort of new free agents, I should say, who Ring of Honor, they have history with Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor should bring in. And I know Kyle is super stoked about this news. So.
Oh, man. It just became a reality within the last 24 hours of us recording this episode. Cesaro, the former Claudio Castagnoli, is now a free agent and is free to go anywhere. And the Briscoes and the Kings of Wrestling, Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Hero, tore the house down on multiple occasions over the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles, including, I believe, main eventing a final battle for the belts one year, I believe.
Yeah, I think people really forget how big of a deal Claudio was in Ring of Honor.
He had a couple of great singles runs. He had an amazing match against Takeshi Morishima for the ROH World title. He had several great matches against Nigel McGuinness. He and Hero were a tremendous tag team. I know Chris Hero hasn't really worked in ring anywhere since the pandemic hit. So it's entirely possible that Hero's quietly slipping into retirement. But at the same time, if anything could get somebody back for one more run, it could definitely be this. And there's so many other potential former tag teams. You mentioned the Young Bucks. Myself and our producer Jameis mentioned it before we went live here as a joke, but the American Wolves are out there. Yeah. Eddie Edwards is working with Impact right now, but they're open to collaboration. And Davey Richards is now back on the scene. That's a thing that could happen. It's the Motor City Machine Guns are still out there.
That's a good one. That didn't even cross my mind, but that's a really good one.
There's in a company with as rich a tag history and tradition and as deep a tag division as historically they've had, you could pull any number of people and it could be something amazing. Yeah,
and with how long the Briscoes have been in Ring of Honor, they're 12-time Ring of Honor tag champs. They have beef with anyone. You can make an amazing story with basically every tag team that's going today, just because the Briscoes have been just a foundational rock in tag team wrestling for so long. And regardless of who it is, it's going to be a great match. But I also think Ring of Honor is they released all their talent, and I think they're going to start rebranding themselves as a super indie. So it could be anyone. Like, it doesn't have to be someone who was signed to Ring of Honor. It could be anyone. So there is a chance they could bring in someone with no history with the Briscoes and have that match. But I think your return show, you need to have that those historical ties for the fans. So I think American Wolves, I think Young Bucks, Motor City Machine Guns. Now I'm stuck on it. I'm going to be thinking about that forever and ever.
Hey, if it's not them, I don't want you to be mad at me, though.
Oh, I definitely am. I'm going to be on Twitter. Like, Kyle convinced me that it was Motor City.
He swore that it was happening.
He told me it's the only thing that made sense, of course. I just think this show is going to be incredible, and I really hope we get some great surprises. I'm not sure about Claudio, what his contract situation is, if he's going to keep wrestling, where he's going to keep wrestling. But I do think Ring of Honor should call him and have him do something. If it's not a match, have him make an appearance, because he's so important to their history. And in my opinion, Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, future inductee, has to be Claudio.
Oh, absolutely. Going back to that, a little thing. Christopher Daniels, when he started in Ring of Honor, was not shaking hands. That was a whole thing, that Christopher Daniels and the Prophecy did not shake hands. They did not follow the code of honor until the 100th show, when Christopher Daniels wrestled somebody who gave him such a fight and such a tremendous match and impressed him so much that for the first time in Ring of Honor, Christopher Daniels shook hands. That was Claudio Castagnoli.
Yeah, and I think he's been in WWE for so long. I believe he signed in 2011, so 11 years in WWE. And I think during that same time period, Ring of Honor changed so much. It became, the Young Bucks, and they had the partnership with New Japan, and we had all the great things that came out of that. But sort of the old school Ring of Honor fans like me and you, we know and we understand that period from 2000 to 2010, the early 2000s specifically, were so insane. And there were so many stars in that company who are stars today, like CM Punk. He was there in the early 2000s.
Yes.
Claudio, Bryan Danielson, all these guys made their names in Ring of Honor. And I hope we get that feel back with the new rebrand.
I would hope so. And ROH has always been a company that has steered into history. They've always been somebody that's been very cognizant of that. I would hope that continues to do so. And I would hope that they listen to the fans about this, because I'm sure this is the case of a lot of fans probably feel the same way that we do. And they've talked about, and Ian Riccaboni talked about it, that fan engagement is going to be so key for this new iteration of the company moving forward. Mm-hmm. You know, they're going to want to hear from the fans, listen to the fans. Who should challenge this title? Who do you want to see booked? Who do you want to see in this match? You know, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think, I don't think this is a knock on Ring of Honor, but I think the period where the Elite left and formed AEW, I think Ring of Honor definitely fell into a creative slump, and the pandemic, of course, didn't help anything. And I think a lot of fans started to turn on the promotion. And I think moving forward, for the recovery of Ring of Honor and the future of Ring of Honor, fans have to be important. And we see other super indies like GCW who have such strong fan support, and they really do take the feedback of their fans into consideration. And I think Ring of Honor, if they continue with that and they bring fans in and they build their creative off of the ideas and sort of the wants of the fans, I think it could be something really special in wrestling. And I'm really excited.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ring of Honor sort of came about amongst all those super indies of the day. Of it, PWG immediately springs to mind as another one that was doing that in that same mold, you know. But PWG's distinction there is that they are almost exclusive to the Southern California area. They don't generally leave that area. GCW tours. ROH, this new iteration, we're presuming will tour, you know. So that'll be interesting to see as well. And if you involve regional talent on the card, depending on where you're traveling, things like that.
And I also
speaking
hope,
of the,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also hope with the new relaunch, I hope we still continue to see Jonathan Gresham and sort of the other champions defending their titles in other promotions, because I think that's been so much fun to see. And I hope it continues, because I think it's good for Ring of Honor. I think it's good for the titles, and I think it's good for wrestling. I just want everyone to work together.
Absolutely. Now, the super indie concept is interesting just in the sense of if you're going to have titles, then you're going to need to have at least some level of connective tissue.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be week to week episodic necessarily, but you do have to have something that ties those shows together. Otherwise, there's almost no point in having those titles, because maybe someone can't be booked a month from now, 2 months from now. So it's a tricky balance. I think they can work it. I think there's plenty of promotions out there that are doing it. I am intrigued to see how it works out, because this is something that I wrote about when ROH left, went on hiatus, I should say, was where does ROH fit in the current landscape of professional wrestling? Because it always used to be able to hang its hat on the best pure wrestling, or the best in-ring product, or the best tag team wrestling, or, you know, and in the last decade or so, a lot of other promotions have come up and laid claim to some of those mantles. So, you know, where are you hanging your hat in 2022?
Yeah, and I think Ring of Honor really needs to have a strong core of talent that they can consistently bring in. And I think they really need to work on developing characters, because if you're going to be a super indie, chances are there's going to be people who aren't going to see every show. Like, a lot of people don't see every GCW show. Barely anyone sees every PWG show, let's be honest, because they're so hard to get a hold of.
It is.
So you really need to have characters who can fill fans in on stories and continue stories in the ring without fans having to work super hard for it. And I'm not saying that we have to make it super easy and basic and it's just going to be boring, but I do think Ring of Honor needs to take the steps to do that. And I also think, and this is kind of a common criticism of Ring of Honor, if they're going to continue to bring in women, then they really need to work on that. And I'm not sure how we get there. I would like to see them partner with Impact and maybe AW, and they can all share the women's division. But I do think that these are valid criticisms of Ring of Honor. And I think that moving forward, they need to address them, because that's what the fans want. And that's a lot of the reason why fans don't have the goodwill towards Ring of Honor that they used to.
Absolutely. And I mean, you would be the person to talk to about that. I mean, what with the ADHDivas and all that, you know, I know this is one of the things that you do so well for, and I'm sure you'll plug those at the end of the show. But I did think that, you know, before the hiatus, things were going pretty well with the women's divisional things, or at least better. They were definitely on the improving side of things. The tournament was a great step forward, telling some wonderful stories, highlighting some tremendous women's competitors. And I don't know, I know Bobby Cruz and Maria were both involved in that on and off screen. And so I see no reason to think that can't continue.
Oh, I definitely agree. I definitely also think Maria Kanellis needs to be in Ring of Honor. I think they need to give her, you know, a backstage role and have her with a contract. She can wrestle. I'm not sure if she wants to wrestle. I don't really know. But I definitely think there's something special about her when it comes to talent relations and scouting and also planning matches. I think she's underrated as a women's talent when it comes to those sort of things. So I'm really excited to see where Ring of Honor goes with that. I would also, and maybe this is me just sort of fantasy booking, I don't really know. I would absolutely love to see intergender stuff in Ring of Honor. Impact does it, GCW does it, a few other places do it. And I think Ring of Honor could really benefit from that because a lot of people enjoy that. And with that, you can tell a lot of really interesting stories. Like Matt Cardona and Jordan Grace on Impact. That's a great story. And you don't need a title for it. But I would like to see Ring of Honor do that. And I'm not sure where they're going with that, how they feel about that. I guess we'll find out in the future. But it would be nice to see them sort of branch out into these more like modern wrestling things.
Oh yeah, well, maybe they can bring back the intergender tag team titles that Chris Hero and Sarah Del Rey held back in the day.
Yeah. Chris Hero, we brought him up a few times, and we just got to give that man a shout out. I think he's one of the unsung heroes of wrestling. He trained a lot of people, worked with a lot of people. So speaking of Ring of Honor history, do you want to move on to the Hall of Fame?
I think that's an excellent choice.
Okay, so I'm just gonna run down the list, and we have 5 technically inductees, and then we can go one by one and sort of talk about them. You good with that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
let's go.
So Ring of Honor Hall of Fame 2022. I think this is going to be a thing every year moving forward. This class is the Briscoes, Mark and Jay. We talked about them earlier. Tag team legends, Ring of Honor legends, no brainer. Bryan Danielson is an interesting one. Samoa Joe and CM Punk. And I'm so glad this class, of course, Ring of Honor, just the biggest stars to come out of Ring of Honor, in my opinion. I think it's interesting that all of these guys, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, and CM Punk, left WWE. And now they're inducted. And I'm not entirely sure if other former Ring of Honor stars like Tyler Black, Seth Rollins would be inducted until they're sure. But regardless, a great class of wrestlers. Ring of Honor picked them very well. So let's start with the Briscoes. What is your history with the Briscoes? What are some standout moments for you?
Oh, wow. The Briscoes, they are literally Ring of Honor since day one. Jay Briscoe
Really.
opened the very first show, the very first match against the Amazing Red. And they were so young at that point that Mark could not legally wrestle in the state of Pennsylvania because of child labor laws.
Yeah,
He had
I
to
think
wait until they toured to another state, and then he could wrestle.
Yeah, I think people forget about how integral they've been. And like I mentioned, they've been Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions 12 times. But I think they also won the 6-man titles once or maybe twice. But Jay has had a career as a singles guy. I think he was in one of the first singles matches in Ring of Honor. I don't know if it's exactly the first or if it's one of the first, but he was there, and he was there as a singles guy. And he also won the Ring of Honor World Championship twice.
Yes.
So both of these guys are just decorated as Ring of Honor stars. This is a no-brainer for me. And I would like to see them come back to Ring of Honor and win more titles. I'd also want to see them everywhere because I think the Briscoes are fantastic. And I think their in-ring work even from the beginning holds up today. I think they were really pioneers of that style.
Yeah, Jay was one of a few guys who, right after 2012 or thereabouts, you had the situation where a lot of top talent started leaving Ring of Honor. This was a case that happened a lot. Every 3 or 4 years, you'd see somebody who was built right up to the top of the company, go head to Impact, head to WWE, wherever. And this was around 2011 or 12 or thereabouts when Claudio was leaving, Tyler Black was leaving. All these guys were heading out to Stamford or where have you, and you had 3 guys that basically carried the company through that time, and it was Jay Lethal, Adam Cole, and Jay Briscoe. Michael Elgin did have a world title run in there. Kevin Steen did some great work in there, but really it was those 3 guys that carried that company for the better part of a couple of years.
Yeah, the Briscoes have always been loyal to Ring of Honor in its highs and its lows. And that's, in some ways, that's benefited their career. In some ways, it's sort of harmed their career. But I think if there's anyone who's going to be the first inductee into the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, it's going to be the Briscoes. There's no one else.
Yeah.
Bryan Danielson is an interesting one. And I'm not sure how familiar people are with his Ring of Honor run, but he was so different from Daniel Bryan in WWE. And I think people, they think of him and they think of Daniel Bryan and they think WWE Hall of Famer. But Bryan Danielson in Ring of Honor was violent. And he was one of the guys who just went in there and brawled and just had the time of his life. He was very technical, of course, even then, or that early in his career. But there were times when I saw matches, and I was quite young, so of course I'm very into it. I'm feeling everything. Where I genuinely I feared for his opponent's lives because he's so stiff. He was so angry. The American Dragon was one of the iconic characters in Ring of Honor, and I was so sad to see him go. Of course, Daniel Bryan, love him. He did amazing things, but he was very influential everywhere he went. And now he's in AEW. He's doing great things in AEW. And I think Ring of Honor choosing him in the first class, it's just what else can you do? I feel like Ring of Honor is really approaching this with class. And I think maybe this is me like being too negative, but there were people who were criticizing this, saying Ring of Honor was coming and inducting him and CM Punk and Smojo for popularity, and that Ring of Honor didn't really care about that era. But like we said, Ring of Honor is all about history, and this is a class act to me. And I think Bryan Danielson is going to be in every Hall of Fame he could ever be in. I think that's undeniable.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I would say that in addition to all of that, Danielson has one of the longest Ring of Honor world title reigns. I just had to look it up just now. Samoa Joe's was 645 days. That's not being topped. But Bryan Danielson turned in 462 days as ROH World Champion, working through injuries, defending against everybody you could name. I think he rattled off some absurd number of defenses.
I think it was like 38 or 39 title defenses, which is insane if you think about it. If you think about champions today, how seldom they defend their titles, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But
and his story.
Yeah.
And his story in Ring of Honor was tremendous. He was a technical guy. He main evented the first Ring of Honor show in a triple threat with Christopher Daniels and Low Key just 20 years ago, a couple days ago from today. And was a great technical wrestler, but didn't quite have, like, something wasn't quite there.
Yeah, that's fair.
And in storyline, they had Danielson lose a world title match to Joe, I think. I want to say it was Joe, but it might have been Aries. I'm trying to remember now. And decided said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go get my head straight. And in storyline, left and went to wrestle around Europe and work in England and work in Japan and hone his craft all over the world. And then came back and beat James Gibson for the Ring of Honor World title at Glory by Honor and kicked off this amazing reign, during which he debuted things like we see now, like the I Have Till 5 on the rope breaks that started Ring of Honor. Little things like that, where he would take you apart and be just the worst human being in the world, but you knew he was so, so good at what he did that
you rooted
what
for
could
him.
You do about it?
Yeah. I think he was one of the first big Ring of Honor stars. I think for a lot of people, he was their introduction into Ring of Honor. And what a great introduction, honestly. And so our third inductee is Samoa Joe. And we mentioned him when we were talking about Bryan Danielson's title reign. But Samoa Joe has the longest Ring of Honor World title reign in Ring of Honor history, 645 days, which is just an insane run. He was part of that group of guys who was in Ring of Honor in sort of the 2005, 2006, 2007 era. That's sort of his peak in the company. And he's another guy who I think that his run in Ring of Honor is really underrated. I think people bring it up a lot and they're like, oh, you remember Samoa Joe in Ring of Honor? And they talk about it on Twitter, but I don't think people actually realize how good he was in Ring of Honor. And that's what got him into WWE.
Yeah, Joe was a monster. And when people chanted, Joe's going to kill you, they weren't being ironic about it. Joe went in and wrecked people.
Yes.
And his run was just so, so good. I don't have enough superlatives to say about it. He ended the short and somewhat inconsequential title reign of Xavier and then proceeded to just go on an unbelievable run. Turned the Ring of Honor title into a world title, defended it in England, brought it back stateside, took on all comers, had a trilogy of matches with CM Punk, who we'll get to in a little bit, that one of which was the first North American match that Dave Meltzer gave 5 stars to in 6 years or something, 6 or 7 years, something like that at that point. He could brawl, he could wrestle, he could do submissions, he could strike.
He could talk on the mic.
Oh, man. And you believed every word.
Yes. So you mentioned his trilogy with CM Punk, and that'll stand up as an all-time classic trilogy, an all-time classic rivalry, I think, for years and years and years. So CM Punk came to Ring of Honor very early. He made his debut 2002, 2003, around there, very, very early in the company's history.
Yes.
And in his first year, he had a rivalry with Raven, which I think really made him a star. And that really pushed him into the trilogy with Joe. And the trilogy with Joe, I think that is what made CM Punk. And I think that's just a testament to Samoa Joe and how great he was and how much he really understands wrestling and all the little details that go into wrestling. There's like big in-ring stuff, big basics, but he really understood every step he took, every sort of mannerism he had, every time he looked at the crowd, he made it impactful. And I think that changed wrestling moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and to a certain extent, I think you could argue that the trilogy made Joe as well, or at very least made his title reign. To that point, he had just been kind of wrecking people left and right. They weren't tomato cans by any stretch of the imagination, but there wasn't anything. I didn't feel like there was any meat on the bones to his title run. And then he met Punk, and they went an hour, and you went, "Oh, he can, I don't know if he can beat this guy. This is okay. Yeah. I'm intrigued here." And then they went an hour again.
Another draw.
And then you're really interested. And and then Joe cuts the promo afterwards when Punk wants a rematch and says, the goal is to beat me, not survive me. And it's like, and then you're thinking now, is Big Bad Joe ducking Punk? Does he not believe anymore? And then you get to the third match in the blow-off, and Joe actually puts his feet on the ropes as part of a roll-up pin to try to get over on Punk and try to finally put this guy behind him. And it just told such a great story from beginning to end.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think everyone should go back and watch those matches, and you'll really understand a lot more about both Samoa Joe and CM Punk and a lot of why they still do a lot of the things they do. So, speaking of CM Punk, he is our final inductee into the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame. Yep. As I mentioned, he debuted in Ring of Honor very early. He had a great rivalry with Raven. I think he made an appearance in the Pure Tournament. He didn't win. I think AJ Styles ended up winning that. He had the
AJ beat him in the finals.
Yeah. He had the trilogy with Joe. And he was very, very popular. The fans really liked him. But then we had him leaving Ring of Honor in 2005. And this was a period of chaos.
The original Summer of Punk.
The OG Summer of Punk. Summer Punk is sort of synonymous with his WWE run. But if you're a Ring of Honor fan, this is where it started.
Yep. So he defeated Austin Aries at Death Before Dishonor 3 to win the Ring of Honor World title in June of 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And this, at the time, this was booked as, this is Punk's last match, but he's going to challenge Aries for the title. And this was, to hear Punk tell it in his documentary DVD from WWE, he brought the idea to Gabe Sapolsky, the booker at Ring of Honor at the time, and said, they know that I'm leaving, but they don't know when. And basically said, let's mess with him a little bit. So he was going into what was being promoted as his last match, wins the title. Nobody sees it coming. And what even fewer people see coming is the promo he cuts afterward, where he turns on everyone, insinuates that he played them like a fiddle to get what he wanted, the Ring of Honor World title, which he's now going to take with him.
Yes. And this was big in 2005. I guess in 2022, independent wrestling fans, they don't see this as something big, but winning the Ring of Honor title and going to WWE, that was major. And a lot of fans were very upset. They worked the fans so easily. I'll admit, I was worked by this. I was very upset. I was a lifetime CM Punk fan, and now I have to boo him because he's rude. But this was,
and he signed, and in storyline, he signed his WWE contract on the Ring of Honor World title belt.
Yes,
in the ultimate show of disrespect.
Yeah, and he didn't end up leaving Ring of Honor until I think August of that year, August of 2005. So we had a good period of time where we were grappling with this CM Punk thing. And in 2005, there were wrestling journalists, there were people around, but not a lot of fans had access to these things. So what we had access to were like online chat rooms and then like forums. And I remember being very young and sneaking onto these forums because, you know, this was for grown-ups, and just being like, guys, what is going on with CM Punk? And he went to WWE, had an amazing run in WWE. But this angle, this took CM Punk and it took Ring of Honor and it pushed them to the next level. This was so genius. And you would never get away with it in 2022.
No. I'm just not going to point out that I was in college when the Summer of Punk angle happened.
It's fine. It's fine. I was a child, but I wasn't that young. It's fine.
Oh gosh. Well, that's just unpleasant.
Not very old. Listen.
I don't like this new reboot of pop-up video. But no, that was a tremendous angle. It saw CM Punk defend the title against Roderick Strong, against James Gibson, against Christopher Daniels. He and Daniels went to a 60-minute draw at one point before he finally dropped the title in a 4-way with Joe, Gibson, and Daniels to James Gibson, who got the rub, won the world title. Punk went and had his last match with Cabana in Chicago the next night. Tears streaming down his face as he made his entrance to Night Train by Bouncing Souls. And just a great run. You can't tell the story of Ring of Honor without CM Punk.
You really can't. And there's not enough good things I can say about CM Punk. But I think we should talk about the dog collar match. I think this was career defining for CM Punk, and I love that we're talking about it in 2022 because it's relevant again. So, in 2003, CM Punk wrestled Raven in a dog collar match at Death Before Dishonor. I'm pretty sure
the first one, the very first Death Before Dishonor,
and it was brutal. I'm just gonna come out and say it. It was everything you expect from a dog collar match and more. And it was one of CM Punk's classic matches. I know Kyle is a big fan of this match.
I absolutely am. It was really just something special. The Punk Raven feud in general was just such a great moment for a company that had really prided itself on just almost pure wrestling for the sake of it. At that point, there wasn't really a lot that had happened in Ring of Honor. The prophecy angle was a thing, but for the most part, you really didn't see the kind of angle that you could really sink your teeth into. It's nothing that really felt important or personal in that sense. And the Raven feud changed a lot of that because Raven showed up in Ring of Honor at Expect the Unexpected in early 2003. He had a match with Punk, which was no DQ, and the feud just sort of exploded from there. Nobody could figure out, everybody was very happy to see Raven there, the veteran who was helping the young guys. But Punk could not stand Raven, wanted him gone, took every opportunity to attack him, antagonize him, get after him. And it wasn't until he cut the legendary promo at Wrestle Rave 03, the famous This Is Straight Edge promo, where Punk revealed that his father was an alcoholic and Raven reminded him of his dad, who Raven had every opportunity in the world and flushed them all away. And it was just such an amazing, heartfelt, hair stand up on your arm kind of promo and moment. And it led to the dog collar match where Punk promised in the promo that I will become a monster to fight the monsters of the world. And oh, did he ever. They bled buckets all over the Rexplex in New Jersey. And at the end of it, it was just, you were shocked that either one was still standing.
Yeah, and I was exhausted at the end of this match. Even when I go back and I watch clips of it, nowadays, I'm still just, it's so emotionally draining because you can tell that they're very emotional and they really sell the we hate each other storyline. And it's so incredible. We don't get a lot of this very, very emotional stuff in wrestling. And I think it's really interesting that CM Punk is once again in one of these stories with MJF in a dog collar match. That MJF promo was just incredible. CM Punk coming out saying, "Is it real? Is it real?"
Yeah.
That was old school Ring of Honor CM Punk. And we've seen like a little bit of that in AEW. And we did see a little bit of WWE too. But that brought me back. And this dog collar match, of course, there's a high standard for dog collar matches. Greg Valentine, Roddy Piper, those are like the classics. But CM Punk, there's few guys who can do it like him. And I'm so excited for this dog collar match with MJF.
And the match is almost as famous for the post-match. Punk got the win, decided to tape Raven to the ropes, knowing that Raven was a recovering alcoholic at that point, and decided that he was going to make Raven fall off the wagon and pour beer down his throat as a recovering alcoholic, only for Raven to be saved by none other than Tommy Dreamer, his old eternal blood rival, who turned the tables on Punk, taped him to the ropes, and poured a beer down his throat, and just tremendous stuff all around. And I'm really looking forward to what Punk and MJF can do with the kind of storytelling that they've already set the bar for here. Although there's a part of me that almost wonders if the better comparison for the Punk MJF feud might be Punk and Jimmy Rave, which happened a couple of years later.
Yeah.
It didn't culminate in the dog collar match, but they did have one. And the alignments are a little bit more different. Punk was clearly, the face in the Rave feud, as opposed to clearly being the heel in the Raven feud. And by that point, he was a little bit more established in the company. He was a little bit more of a top guy, and it was more Rave sees him as a stepping stone to the title than Punk sees Raven as the avatar of everything evil in society. And there could be some parallels to be drawn there as well.
I think definitely. I think this feud, CM Punk and MJF, is the first feud CM Punk has had in AEW since coming back to wrestling that has had a lot of substance to it. The Eddie feud was fantastic, and I think the promos were great. But I think we can all agree that was a little bit rushed because of the time that we had. But there's so many callbacks to CM Punk's past, and a lot of that is because MJF was a big fan, and he sort of followed CM Punk. And I just love this kind of stuff. These little seeds that they plant that if you don't know his history, it won't bother you. It's not going to confuse you or anything. But if you do know, it makes the story that much better. And
Absolutely.
I love to see CM Punk with that sort of passion again that he had in Ring of Honor that he lost in WWE. And Hall of Famer CM Punk. This is the ideal CM Punk.
It's been fantastic. And the Jimmy Rave feud, was such a great thing. Just in ring, of course, it really helped to establish Rave as a top guy for the company. It really helped establish Prince Nana's embassy as a big deal moving forward. And it really let Rave just embrace he was already getting booed by the fans to a certain extent, but he took it to such a higher level in that Punk feud. I'll remember, I wish I could remember the show, but they had a moment where Rave tried to scrape off the straight edge tattoo on Punk's abdomen with a cheese grater because they wanted to steal Punk's identity from him. Like, that was the level of hatred that we were operating at.
And honestly, I believed it. And part of me, like, I go back and I watch it and I'm like, you know what? It has to be real, even a little bit. Like, they're just so good at, and I don't want to harp on the same things, but the character stuff.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this with other people in the past. I think wrestling, we're finally getting back into this groove of character stuff. But I think there was a period of time where we really did lose characters in wrestling. And there were very few people who were successful being these sort of intense, dramatic, engaging characters, because everyone was very focused on work rate and having absolutely bonkers matches. Like,
yes,
especially on the indies and outside of WWE and other, major promotions around the world. And to me, this type of wrestling, CM Punk, Ring of Honor era wrestling, Bryan Danielson, Ring of Honor era wrestling, this is ideal wrestling, and this is wrestling at its finest. And I'm glad
100%.
that these guys are getting the chance to do it all again in AEW. I think both of their stories, their respective stories they're in now, just give me so many old school vibes. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I had to just look it up a second ago. So let me look down a second ago just to double check the shows and the dates and the times. The same show that Punk and Rave blew off their feud in a steel cage match in Chicago was the same one that Austin Aries defeated Bryan Danielson on the match that sent Danielson away on his sojourn before he came back to win the ROH World Title. So all that history, that's what we're talking about in that era of Ring of Honor. There's so much of it. You can point to everything on one of those cards, and something big was happening.
Yeah, because Ring of Honor was such a creative first company at this point in time. I think they really wanted to tell stories that the fans wanted to see, because fans weren't really getting them in a lot of other places. The big promotions at the time, WWE, TNA was there. Whether they were telling good stories at the time, I'm not exactly sure. I'm a big TNA fan, but I think Ring of Honor at this period of time, on a creative standpoint, was better. And I think the talent there who was at Ring of Honor during this period, like 2003, we'll say 2003 to 2008, I think they were the most passionate indie guys that had been around for a long time. And of course, they all went on to WWE and they did great things there and they made money and everything. But this period of Ring of Honor is just gold. And I think the Briscoes are evidence of that, because they've sort of continued that.
Yeah, even with the Briscoes taking they were gone from Ring of Honor for several years, and I don't think it was ever really, I forget what the reasoning was, if it was they went to college or what the whole situation was, but for a chunk of years there, they were gone. They just up and left, and I don't think there was even a big farewell. They just were gone. I'd have to do some research and figure it out, but even still, something that Ring of Honor excelled at for so many years was that when the Joes left, or the Punks left, or the Dragons left, there was always a sense of next man up. And ROH did such a great job of cultivating that in its card that Nigel McGuinness was ready to step up and be a world champion, or Homicide was ready to be a world champion, or Austin Aries, or Roderick Strong, all these names.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think even with how intense the title feuds were and sort of the main event level feuds, I think Ring of Honor, there were a lot of sort of mid-card, undercard feuds and stories going on that were just as entertaining. I don't want to... Ring of Honor was not 100% brutal and violent and serious all the time. There were a lot of other entertaining moments. And I think that's why Ring of Honor built the fan base that it did. And I think that's why they were able to have success with guys, later on, like the Young Bucks and sort of all these indie legends, I should say. And I think that's why they had such great success with New Japan, because New Japan is the same way.
Yeah.
And I just hope, fingers crossed, with the Super Indie rebrand, we get back to that and we have sort of the same, that old school feel, the storytelling, the passion, all those things. I really hope we get that back.
100%, 100%. And yeah, no, ROH had their entertaining acts, their sillier acts, or more sports entertainment-y kind of acts, if you will. Sweet and Sour Incorporated immediately springs to mind. Rest in peace, Larry Sweeney. But Chris Hero, and we've talked about him earlier, and I will not hide for a moment what an unapologetic Chris Hero mark I am. He was one half of one of my favorite ROH World Title matches ever. His challenge against Tyler Black is still one of my favorite title defenses ever. Partially because I was there for it, partially because it was just such a fantastic match top to bottom.
It was good.
But and they had those moments where you had Sweet and Sour Incorporated bullying poor Bobby Dempsey over his complete and utter inability to lose weight and all that silly nonsense. But then in the same card, you'd have just a hard-hitting 20-minute, amazing professional wrestling match, and then you'd have an amazing scramble or spot fest on the undercard. It was one of the first real independent super indie efforts to really give something for everybody.
And I think that's why Ring of Honor can be credited with building wrestling as we know it today. I think there's a lot of things in wrestling that wouldn't have happened if Ring of Honor didn't have success at this period in time. I don't think we would have AEW. I don't think WWE would have a lot of its stars. I don't think
so either.
I think Ring of Honor needs a lot more credit. And you know what? We're going to be the ones to give it to them, Kyle. It's going to be me and you on this show. Ring of Honor's number
Us against the world. Bring it on. Bring it on. Bring them on too. Come talk to us on the show. It'll be great.
Anyone is welcome on this show. We are open to all guests as long as you put over Ring of Honor with us.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, and you and I could both go on for so long about our memories of the promotion, different favorite angles, favorite matches. I mean, I'm trying to rattle off all the different names that at least were in Ring of Honor at some point. Let's see what I wrote them down here as well at some point. Just in WWE alone, Adam Pearce, Shelton Benjamin, Cesaro was in WWE at the time. Dominic Dijakovic or Donovan Dijak in ROH. Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Malcolm Bivens, Damian Priest, who was a former ROH TV champion. Samoa Joe, who was there. Brian Kendrick, who was there. All of the Undisputed Era. Half of WWE's roster came through Ring of Honor at some point or another.
And Ring of Honor makes stars. And a lot of these guys worked indie promotions and they had a lot of experience and they were able to do that. But there's something special about Ring of Honor and the way that Ring of Honor creatively approaches wrestling and its philosophy that makes stars. And I think with, the pure wrestling and the ROH pure title, I think that's something very unique that a lot of guys don't get to do. And I'm excited to see Ring of Honor continue to do that. Pure rules matches are, once you get used to them, of course, with the rules, they're some of the most entertaining things in wrestling. And
shout out to Josh Woods. Looking forward to him coming back too. The pure champion.
Love Josh Woods. So good. And I think Ring of Honor has a way of really testing guys and testing their adaptability and their versatility as wrestlers. And I think there's a lot of room to grow there. And I think that's why Ring of Honor has been so instrumental.
100%. Hard agree. You cannot understate what they've meant to the wrestling landscape, just in terms of, like we've said, the talent, the angles that they've inspired. Oh my gosh, we can't overstate it, but we're going to try.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? We're coming up on an hour.
Oh, there's plenty that we can touch on at some point moving forward, but we've got the rest of however long we want to do so. So now let's take it home.
Okay. So I'll do my plugs. You do your plugs. So you could follow me on Twitter @Fuller_Kiley. You can see me on Fightful Overbooked every Saturday, sometimes at 11 a.m., sometimes at 3 p.m. Demo Divas, we talk everything women's wrestling. We grade promotions. We talk women's matches. We make predictions. We talk about issues. We talk about good things. We talk about everything. Demo Divas, Fightful Overbooked. ADHDivas every Sunday on the Bodyslam.net YouTube channel. That's just insane show. It's just chaotic, and I can't really describe it to you. You just have to go check it out. I'll be here with Kyle every week talking Ring of Honor. If you have anything you want us to touch on, you can send it to me on Twitter. You can send it to Kyle on Twitter, and we'll be sure to check it out. So, also follow Bodyslam.net on all your socials, Bodyslam.net on YouTube, on Twitter. Go read our stuff, especially Kyle's stuff on the Bodyslam.net, all the stuff he's writing. We're just everywhere. We're going to be doing so many things with this podcast. And yes, Kyle's also a writer for Bodyslam. He's very talented. Give Kyle his flowers. Give Kyle his flowers. I'm just going
to turn around and give them to my wife anyway. So,
it's a win-win then. It's a win-win. We're really excited about this podcast. We have so many surprises for you. Kyle, do your plugs.
Oh, man. I can be found on Twitter, or as I said yesterday, and Jameis gave me some crap about it, the Twitters or the tweeters. I'm on Twitter at Kyle K. Sparks. K in the middle. Remember that. Otherwise, I don't even know who you're going to follow. Maybe they're very nice too. I don't know. Follow me on Twitter at Kyle K. Sparks. You can find me on bodyslam.net. I'm writing news updates for them. I am going to be here every week with Kiley, knocking out more ROH memories. As she said, anything that you want to hear us talk about, anybody you want to hear us talk to, drop us a line, let us know, and we'll see if we can't make it happen. We're about as big of fans as you're going to find, and I'm sure we'd love to talk to anybody from the promotion, past, present, or future. I cannot underscore enough. Watch all of Kiley's things. She's fantastic. All of her co-hosts are fantastic. The whole Bodyslam team is great. Follow Bodyslam.net on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the things.
Yes, and we're everywhere.
It's true. It's great.
We're doing all the things. So thank you guys for joining us at the Code of Honor podcast. We'll be here every week talking Ring of Honor, so we hope you join us next week.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you can also buy Bodyslam merchandise at Pro Wrestling Tees. It's true. Support us.
So, get some money and help keep the lights running.
Yeah. See you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.